Welcome back to the Biker PM. I'm your host, Anthony Pavelich. Today we have part 2 with Amy Suto. So if you haven't listened to the first part, stop now, go back and listen. Let's get started. So where do you see Kingdom of Ink going? I mean, now you're building a new app so that you guys can, or a new tech tool so everybody can collaborate better. But where do you see Kingdom of Ink going?
One of the next things that we're doing is we're actually opening up our publishing arm, because what we've been seeing with publishing, what I've been seeing with my clients, is that publishers really eat into the profits and book sales. Traditional publishing is not friendly for authors. And a lot of these big publishing houses still expect authors to do their own book marketing, which is insane. And so what we're trying to do is take another crack at publishing. And I actually grew up working in my parents' vintage bookstore. So I've spent quite a long time around books and learning about how the publishing industry works. What I really want to do with Kingdom of Ink, the publishing arm, which is called Kingdom of Ink Press, help our clients kind of get their books into print, but in a new way, with on-demand publishing, more creative marketing strategies, and so that we can offer full packages to people who want to ghostwrite their memoirs and get it out there. Because what we're seeing, especially with a lot of our clients that are coming to us with big Instagram followings or TikTok followings, they can do their own book marketing. They can get their book out there, and going to a big publisher will just eat into their royalties in a really big way. And so what we're going to offer is to have them be able to keep their royalties and then to just pay us for our publishing services. So that way they can keep the biggest piece of the pie. Because one thing that we've always wanted to do across all of our companies is have the artist or the writer or the creative retain the rights to their properties, retain the royalties. Because if you're going to be putting something out there, you should be receiving your royalties and not be giving away a huge chunk of it to traditional publishing. And we're also seeing that the way that people find books is completely changing. A lot of the old publishing channels aren't accounting for that and aren't, catching up to the marketing strategies. And we're seeing the publishing industry completely just slash jobs and lose out to books published on Amazon. We're just kind of seeing how the creator economy is shifting, where it's the authors and the speakers who are able to cultivate their own followings kind of getting out there or use digital marketing to get their book out there, rather than huge publisher being this is the new book. It's really cool to kind of see the way that the trends are changing. And it turns out that millennials are actually reading more than previous generations. So the readership is there, but we're seeing that the readership is not really holding on to old avenues of finding books and are not flipping through the New Yorker to find a book. They're looking through Instagram feeds of book influencers. And so there's a lot of really cool trends with book marketing. And because I've helped with my clients get their books out there through traditional publishing channels and seen all the pitfalls of that, because it can take years to, even if you're, if you get an agent and go through the traditional publishing route, to even see your book exist. And it's if you want to have more control over your book and have more of the royalties and have creative say over what the cover looks like, there's a better way to do it. And so that's kind of the first thing that we're going to be doing. And we're really excited for that.
It's interesting that you say that, because one of my favorite authors I follow on Facebook, and he actually is the one that inspired me to write my first sci-fi novel that I published a couple of years ago. I'm working on the sequel, but he released, or his publishing company, now that we're talking like this, released a first edition or an edition of his first book that I ever read, which was at some point split into two. Again, a publishing company decision, I guess, not his. And it's a signed copy, leather bound, everything. It's actually back there sitting by my gargoyle. You can see it right now. I finally got my copy. It's called Magician by Raymond D. Feist. And his Facebook, it's interesting because it wouldn't ship to Canada. So when I called the seller, they're like, the author's rights or whatever. Well, I did post on his Facebook page, and he's like, no, it's a publisher decision. So the publisher, I never really thought about it until you were saying that, is all the different control the publisher actually has over the author, instead of the author having still control of saying what they want, where they want it. I think it would benefit a lot of people, because I didn't realize, because there's comments on his page about different things going to be released, and a lot of his answers are always, well, that's the publisher's decision, So he doesn't have as much say in his own work, which it does sound kind of, when you bring it up, it's that's just not right.
Yeah, especially if you're publishing your memoir or your life story, and you don't have say over what the cover looks like, your story, or even the way that book rights work. There's so many complicated parts of it that is just if you're putting so much lifeblood into writing a book or a memoir or anything, like you should be able to have control over and say over what happens to it. And publishing a memoir is such a personal thing to do. And so we really want to recreate the publishing experience for authors that care about that stuff.
It's actually, I mean, I've never really put into connection of like how much say an author does not have in their works once they let a publisher take control. So I think that would be good for, like you said, even especially when it's their memoir, it's their personal story. It's like, and then lose control of that. It has to be almost defeating in a way sometimes, I think, because you want to tell your story in a certain way, but then the publisher is like, no, thanks, but we'll play it my way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what made you, we've talked about what, getting started with this endeavor and everything, but have you always wanted to own your own business, be an entrepreneur? Or is this something that just because of the opportunity, you're like, hey, I can do this? Or is it something you've always wanted to do?
I think I've always been in some way organizing people to try and get something extraordinary done. Even when I was growing up and working in my parents' business, I watched how they quit their jobs and just started their own company, and they started their own bookstore. They started their own like all online, and being able to like help them by shipping books or helping them in their real estate company. I was able to see like what it takes to start your own business, shape the world around you. And I really liked how they were able to, be home during the day with us when we were growing up. And it was really, really cool. It was very hard to see them like really fight to get their business up and running. But I also was so impressed by their ability to like make these things work, because it's so hard to be an entrepreneur. So when I went to like film school and was working in the film industry for the first few years, I saw how so many writers were just so defeated by the fact that they were trapped in these overall deals with these companies that would tell them what they could and could not write. I'm not somebody who appreciates people who are telling creatives what they can and cannot do and trapping them in deals. I just saw how miserable like the other writers in some of my writers' rooms were, or the showrunners that I worked for. Made a promise to myself that I wouldn't be like that. And like, I thought there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way for writers and creatives to have a more holistic career. And I want to build that not only for myself, but for other people. A lot of what my entrepreneurial spirit kind of comes out of is seeing these problems, especially in Hollywood, but really with any creative industry, because there's so much exploitation with songwriters, with authors. All of these creatives have gotten shackled into deals with huge conglomerates that completely restrains their creative abilities and keeps them trapped in what seems like high salaries, everything they've ever wanted. But when they actually get into it and then realize that they can actually make what they want to make, then their lifeblood just gets stripped out of them. And I wanted to make spaces in which the opposite was true, where they could have an income from freelance ghostwriting and be able to write really amazing stories for great people, and then also do their creative work on the side. I wanted to be able to start a publishing company that could help make their stories real without them having to sell out. I wanted to create a podcast company that could create their work without them having to give away all their rights to Spotify. And so trying to figure out how to create these spaces over the past like year and a half has been amazing because it's been like a wild ride so far, just jumping into these businesses and working with all of our creatives in our world. But it's just been so important because creatives are really valuable to society, even if society likes to not treat them that way sometimes. We really wanted to create that new space. And we're also seeing how the economy is just trending towards the creator economy. YouTube is about to surpass Netflix in terms of revenue. And that's insane because Netflix is not profitable and throwing billions of dollars into their company, whereas like YouTube is a creator-led platform, and TikTok blew up because it is a creator-led platform. And so we're seeing how all of these platforms that are enabling the creator economy and enabling individual creatives to truly have agency and ownership over their content is just completely changing the game and pulling the power away from the conglomerates. And so following these trends of like remote work and creator economy is just really fascinating because there's so much opportunity in that. And there's so many really cool spaces that should be built. Me and my partner, Kyle, we were just like, we have to do this. We have to jump on this. And like, we have to be able to make these spaces because they need to exist. And there's so many people that can benefit from it. And we just know that like they need to happen.
Do you feel overwhelmed, overstimulated, and overworked? There's so much you need to do, but you don't know what the best way to do it is? And you're not sure where all your time goes each week? Jump on over to my website, pavproconsulting.com. You can download my free PDF, The 5 Proven Strategies to Steal Back Lost Time and Money in Your Business. And while you're there, you can book a free process discovery session. pavproconsulting.com. Move forward with confidence, focus, and productivity. I think it's an amazing model. I've seen freelance writing websites. I've seen freelance writing jobs on the different freelance websites, but this type of model is something I haven't seen before. So I think it's an amazing thing. I think the thought that you put into ensuring that the freelancers are taken care of above all is commendable.
Thank you.
For entrepreneurs, what do you have a resource or something that inspires you to keep going? A book or something that a person, somebody, something that is like, this is what inspires me to be an entrepreneur, to do this, to be able to stay focused?
I think the thing that inspires me the most are the people around me, watching my parents and what they've gone through. It's been tricky to find other founders that I've really gravitated towards, because I do think a lot of really amazing companies that are built by people are often still built to be sold to a bigger conglomerate, or still built to be something else. I haven't really run into a lot of ecosystems other than companies like Patreon, which I think is a really cool model. But the thing that really inspires me is just the creators in my community. But in terms of just more resources for entrepreneurs and people who are trying to figure it out, I run a blog at amysuto.com, which is basically for the past decade, I've just shared everything that I know about storytelling, my favorite books, my favorite resources. Probably one book about entrepreneurship that really changed my focus was a book called The Naval Almanac. So it's a book about Naval Ravikant. He is an angel investor, or he's a big VC in Silicon Valley. And he started this company called the Angel List, which helps startups get funding. He has a really good philosophy on the approach to work-life balance, on how to build wealth so that you can do the things that you want to do, how to ethically approach building companies. And there's a lot of really interesting things in there. Kind of changed my view on how to be an entrepreneur and how to take care of yourself mentally and physically, because it's very hard. It's very hard when you're dealing with the ups and downs life and trying to start a business and learn everything and feeling you're way in over your head.
And trying to do everything yourself.
Yeah, and trying to do everything yourself and do all 13 jobs because you don't have money to hire anybody. And so it's really interesting. And I think that Naval's book about has a lot of really good snippets about pieces of wisdom that I've tried to take with me in terms of how to value your time, how to think about different project management strategies so that you can actually make the most out of what you're doing. He has a good quote, 99% of effort is wasted, and it's trying to get to the 1% that's actually going to change something. And it's not totally wasted because you'll learn, but know that you have to get through the 99% to get that 1% that's really going to change everything. So he has a lot of really good isms that I think are really, really fascinating in that book.
So if people want to find out more about you and find more, you specifically and Kingdom of Ink, give us the best way to do it. And these are things obviously we'll put in the show notes so everybody can find you.
My website and blog is amysuto.com, and then kingdomofink.com is our website, and those two have links to everything. And then I'm also on all of the social media apps at pseudoscience and SUTO, like my last name. But yeah, so that's kind of how everyone can find me.
Great. Well, I appreciate it, Amy. It's been a great conversation. It's a great venture. I'm glad this year has been amazing for you. I mean, it just shows that you don't have to be afraid to, even in a pandemic, you can pivot and you can make a difference. And that's what I think you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Anthony.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Biker PM. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think. And remember, if you're an entrepreneur that wants to be with like-minded individuals and improving their project management skills, join the Biker PM Facebook group and watch out for some exciting news coming soon. Until next time.